Chapter 11 Take Action. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In a forest outside the mountain range, a young man with a smile on his face dug out a 5-leaf green herb from a crack in the stone. He whispered to himself, "I didn't expect that there is such a thing outside the mountain range. There are many medicinal herbs, and in less than half a day in the mountain, I have already collected 7 precious medicinal herbs." He lowered his head and stared at the herbs, with joy in his eyes. This young man was of course Wu Fan. Wu Fan had followed Mr. Lu since he was a child to learn how to identify herbs and pharmacology. The books he had read could bury him. Of course Wu Fan knew this. This is a body-cleansing grass. It has the effect of detoxifying and cleaning the body. One plant can be sold for 5 taels of silver in a drugstore. It is also an indispensable herb for refining detoxifying pills. Wu Fan carefully put the herbs into the bamboo basket and continued walking forward. An hour later, when Wu Fan looked at a small tree on the rubble in front of him, he couldn't help but frown. There were more than a dozen fist-sized green fruits on the tree. This fruit is called Hanshu fruit and is used as medicine. Later, it can treat symptoms of body cold and weakness of limbs, and cold hands and feet. Wu Fan frowned because there were densely packed spotted venomous snakes at the pile of rocks under the tree. Being bitten by such venomous snakes was no joke. After thinking for a moment, he took out a packet of medicinal powder from the bamboo basket behind his back, and then sprinkled the medicinal powder around the pile of rocks. A quarter of an hour later, he saw that the poisonous snakes were miraculously motionless, as if they were dead. Wu Fan felt that time was almost up, and then he ran over with a smile and quickly picked all the fruits. After picking the fruits, he turned around and left without stopping. Wu Fan said to himself, "These medicinal powders should be able to make these. The pied snake has been sleeping for an hour." 5 hours later, I saw Wu Fan holding a long sword and facing off against a wild wolf. The wild wolf had long gray-brown hair, sharp fangs, and smelly saliva flowing from its mouth. He stared at Wu Fan with a fierce look on his face. At this moment, he saw the gray-brown wild wolf leap up and flew towards Wu Fan. Wu Fan let out a cold snort and kicked his feet. On the ground, he jumped up and directly avoided the attack of the wild wolf. Then Wu Fan turned back and stabbed the wild wolf in the head with his sword. The wild wolf had no time to dodge. He only heard a puff and the sword instantly passing through the wild wolf's head. He brought up a string of red and white things. The wild wolf never imagined until his death that this young man could be so skilled and actually killed it with one move. Wu Fan pulled the sword out of the wild wolf's head, wiped it on the grass, turned around and walked away. "It will be dark in 2 hours. I should go back now. I was lucky today. I picked more than 20 herbs and a dozen cold deficiency fruits. The harvest is quite impressive." Wu Fan looked at it. After looking at the sky, he whispered to himself, "In this way, 5 days passed in a row. Every day I went into the mountains early in the morning and came back to rest in the evening. The harvest was also bountiful. It was another early morning. Wu Fan and Song Fei had breakfast. Song Fei laughed loudly and said, "Brother Xiao Fan, we have harvested well these days. Although I don't pick as many herbs as you, I forget it. Now, excluding the 80% from the drugstore, I can earn 5 taels of silver. According to this calculation, when we go back, I can earn 15 taels of silver at least." Wu Fan also smiled and said, "Yeah, I didn't expect there to be so many medicinal herbs in the Yendang Mountains. I heard other people in our team say that their harvest was also very good. They seem to mean that there has never been anything like this in recent years. I went into the mountains to collect a lot of medicinal herbs. Of course. In the past, they only went to small mountain ranges, and people often came in to pick them. Of course, there will be fewer and fewer medicinal herbs. Unlike the Yendang Mountains, almost no one dares to come, unless some people with good self-control dare to come. Most people don't dare to come here except for collecting herbs. If Gao Qingbin, a quasi-first-class expert, hadn't followed our team this time, we wouldn't have been able to come, Song Fei said angrily. Yes, although there are indeed many medicinal herbs in the Yendang Mountains, it is indeed too dangerous. It is said that 5 people in other medicine shops have been eaten by wild beasts. By the time the escort people arrived, it was already too late. Wu Fan's eyes showed regret. Said with color. Whoever goes there deserves to die. Whoever told them to disobey told us that it was dangerous in the mountains and asked us to collect medicines on the outside. In order to collect more medicines, they insisted on going into the mountains. They will die in vain. Die. Sane Fei rolled his eyes. He didn't think it was a pity for these people to die at all. Wu Fan stood up, put the bamboo basket on his back, hung the long sword on his waist, and said at the same time, there are definitely not as many medicinal herbs in the outer areas as in the deep areas. They are just a little greedy for money. It is said that there are medicinal herbs everywhere in the deep mountains, and there are also those that are old. The precious medicinal herbs. After finishing speaking, Wu Fan glanced at Song Fei, and then walked towards the mountain. Then Wu Fan's voice came, let's go collect medicine. After Song Fei smiled, he quickly put the bamboo basket on his back and followed Wu Fan. In a dense forest, Wu Fan was looking for medicinal herbs. He only heard the roar of animals and the shouts of people in the distance. He could even hear the sound of trees falling. Wu Fan knew that someone was in trouble, and the people close to him were in trouble. Most of them were members of their pharmacy team. He hurriedly ran in that direction. When he arrived, he saw a black brown bear more than 1 foot tall. This brown bear was huge and had amazing strength. He could break a tree with just one palm. He saw a figure 2 feet away from the brown bear getting up from the ground, and then running towards him in panic. The brown bear would definitely not let him go, and he would not let him go. He ran straight towards the man and quickly chased after him. After Wu Fan saw the man's face clearly, he realized that he was really a member of their Huichun Hall. His name was Chen Peng. He was in his 30s and he usually had a good relationship with Wu Fan. When Chen Peng was running away, he raised his head and looked ahead. He found Wu Fan right in front of him. He was so frightened that he shouted quickly, Xiao Fan, run quickly, this brown bear is very powerful. Even a second-rate master can't beat us if we are not our opponents. You run to Gao Qingbin quickly. Chen Peng knew that Wu Fan was Mr. Lu's favorite disciple, and he didn't want Wu Fan to be harmed because of him, otherwise he wouldn't be able to go back and explain to Mr. Lu, but he was already running towards this direction, and the brown bear had also followed. It's too late to change direction and run. Chen Peng was running when suddenly he tripped over a stone under his feet, which scared him to death. Looking back in a hurry, he saw that the brown bear was already close, and he knew that his life was about to be lost. At this moment, Wu Fan's figure suddenly stood in front of him. He was holding a long sword, and the tip of the sword was pointed directly at the brown bear. But that brown bear didn't care who you were, in its eyes it was just too much. Just some food. The brown bear probably thought that the human was provoking it. It immediately roared at Wu Fan, and then flew straight towards Wu Fan. Wu Fan did not dare to neglect. Although he was not afraid of the brown bear, he also knew that the brown bear was very strong. No matter how big it is, if it slaps you, it will definitely be uncomfortable. I saw Wu Fan stepping on the flying swallow step and suddenly appeared on the right side of the brown bear. Then the long sword in Wu Fan's hand was already stabbing towards the brown bear's neck. Unfortunately, the tip of the sword had just penetrated an inch deep into its neck. Wu Fan felt as if he had stabbed fine iron, and it was difficult for the long sword to penetrate deep into its body. At this time, the brown bear felt pain, and then let out a roar, and then slapped the long sword away with one palm. Wu Fan used the brown bear to slap it away. The force of the sword floated backwards. After he landed and stood firm, he pushed his feet on the ground, and he jumped up like an eagle spreading its wings. At the same time, he performed the Qingfeng sword technique, pouring the deep internal force in his body into the long sword. I saw the long sword suddenly emitting a faint white light. For a moment, I felt that the long sword seemed to be sharp as iron and as sharp as mud. Wu Fan held the long sword and stabbed down in the air, heading straight for the brown bear's head at a very fast speed. As fast as lightning, with a puff sound, the long sword had penetrated the brown bear's head. The brown bear swayed, and then fell to the ground motionless. Chen Peng witnessed the whole process of Wu Fan killing the brown bear. He was stunned and then swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva. Wu Fan pulled out the long sword from the brown bear's head, then walked up to Chen Peng and asked with concern, "Uncle Chen, are you okay?" "No, it's okay." Chen Peng had not recovered from the shock. At this moment, Boss Hu and his party ran over, and Gao Qingbin, a quasi-first-class expert, also arrived. It wasn't that they came too slowly, but that Wu Fan killed the brown bear too quickly. From the beginning to the end, there were only 10 people in total. After a few breaths, when they arrived, they were all stunned and speechless when they saw everything in front of them. Chapter 12 Dream Butterfly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiaofan, Chen Peng, are you okay? Boss Hu asked after coming back to his senses. After seeing so many people, Chen Peng recovered from the shock. He stood up, patted the dust on his clothes, and said at the same time, "No, it's okay. Thanks to Xiaofan this time. If it weren't for Xiaofan, my life is decided here today." As Chen Peng said, he looked at Wu Fan with grateful eyes. Everyone looked at Wu Fan again. When Wu Fan saw so many people looking at him, his face turned red and he was a little shy and didn't know what to say. At this moment, Gao Qingbin said, "I heard the sound in the distance and ran over in a hurry, but I was still a step too late. I didn't expect that the battle would end so soon. This brown bear is not easy to deal with, even if I wanted to kill it. It's not an easy task. This brown bear has rough skin and thick flesh, and is as hard as iron. Unless it has deep internal strength, it will be difficult for a sword to penetrate its body." After Gao Qingbin finished speaking, he looked at Wu with a strange look. When everyone heard this, they turned their heads to Wu Fan. Wu Fan knew that if he didn't say something, he would definitely die. The situation was urgent at that time. The brown bear rushed towards Uncle Chen. In desperation, I poured all my inner strength into the sword and stabbed it towards the head of the brown bear. Unexpectedly, I actually killed it. After Wu Fan finished speaking, he also showed an innocent expression on his face. Wu Fan doesn't want everyone to know his true strength, otherwise he will be treated as a monster. Gao Qingbin walked to Wu Fan and lowered his voice and said to Wu Fan, "Little guy, it's not easy. Brother Lu has taken on a good apprentice." After saying that, he walked away laughing. "Okay, since everything is fine, let's all disperse and do whatever needs to be done," Gao Qingbin shouted. At this time, Boss Hu also said, "Come over and carry this brown bear down the mountain." Then he walked over, looked at Wu Fan and said, "Xiao Fan, are you not injured?" "It's okay, Uncle Hu, I'm not injured." Wu Fan replied with some embarrassment. Song Fei also came over and said with a playful smile, "Brother Xiao Fan, you are so powerful. You killed such a big brown bear with just one sword. I really admire you." Wu Fan punched Seinfeld on the chest with his fist and said with a smile, "Don't listen to what they said about how powerful this brown bear is. You could have killed it just now." "Really, really?" Sain Fei asked, looking at Wu Fan with wide eyes. Wu Fan was too lazy to pay attention to him, turned around and left. Just like that, another 5 days passed. On this day, in a valley, Wu Fan reached out and plucked an herb from the ground, and then looked up at a patterned leopard lying in a pool of blood 2 feet away. It was so dangerous just now. Fortunately, since I advanced to the second level of Fire Burning Jew, not only my eyesight but also my hearing have also been upgraded to another level. Otherwise, it was really dangerous just now. I'd better be more cautious in the future. Just now I was a little careless. I didn't expect this patterned leopard to be so fast, and it didn't make any sound when it rushed over, Wu Fan whispered to himself. Wu Fan glanced ahead and decided to walk inside again. He had found all the herbs nearby. He also believed in his martial arts skills, so there should be no accidents. Then he put the bamboo basket on his back and walked towards it. Walk ahead. Deep in the forest, two girls and a middle-aged man were walking slowly. One girl said, "Miss, let's not go inside, right? When we came here, our grandpa specifically told us to only collect herbs outside. It's too dangerous inside." Another girl smiled lively. She looked sweet, and when she smiled, she gave people a feeling of spring breeze. She said, "What are you afraid of? There is no danger after we have been walking for such a long time. Besides, we have a second-rate expert here." After the girl finished speaking, she looked back at the middle-aged man and said at the same time, "Isn't that right? Second uncle." After hearing this, the middle-aged strong man smiled bitterly and said, "Kai-Dai, Xiaoru is right, the depths are too dangerous. Besides, you came here just to experience it, and I didn't really ask you to collect much. Herbs go back." "Oh, I don't care. I just want to collect herbs here. Almost all the herbs have been picked outside. I can't collect many herbs in one day." Meng Caidi said coquettishly. The middle-aged strong man was about to persuade Meng Caidi again, but at this moment, he heard a hissing sound nearby. The strong man's expression changed. He followed the sound and looked ahead, only to see a sudden appearance in front of him. A black-spotted giant python. This giant python was 7 or 8 feet long, with a body as thick as a bucket. The strong man was immediately frightened to death. He turned around and shouted, "Run, colorful butterfly!" As he said that, he stood in front of the two girls. Meng Caidi and the girl named Xiaoru also saw this huge python. When they heard the strong man's cry, their little faces turned pale with fright, then they turned around and ran away. The girl named Xiaoru shouted, "Miss, run quickly and don't look back. I'm going to help my second uncle. You should run quickly. Your martial arts skills are not as good as mine. Why did you cause trouble in the past? My second uncle is a second-rate master. It should be fine." After Meng Caidi said this, she felt that it was a bit far-fetched. Mainly this giant python is too big. As soon as she finished speaking, Meng Caidi saw a scene that she would never forget. She saw the strong man being slapped to death in the air by the python's tail. She even heard the sound of bones breaking. Before the strong man's corpse fell to the ground, the giant python stretched its head upwards, opened its mouth, and bit the strong man's corpse in one bite. It raised its head and swallowed him. This scene frightened Meng Caidi so much that her body became inoperable and she even forgot to run while standing there. At this time, I heard the person named Xiaoru yelling, "Miss, run, run quickly. It's a pity that it's too late to run away now." The giant python has passed through very quickly and is heading straight for Meng Caidi. At the same time, the giant python has opened its bloody mouth. Meng Caidi has even I can smell the fishy smell in the mouth of the giant python. The girl named Xiaoru wanted to swoop over to block Meng Caidi, but it was too late. Meng Caidi knew that her life was about to die, but she hadn't lived enough yet. She didn't want to die. She was still so young. She really regretted that she didn't listen to her second uncle's advice and had to come here stubbornly. Collecting herbs in dangerous depths, her eyes were full of despair, and tears kept flowing from her eyes. At this moment, when Meng Caidi saw that the bloody mouth was less than a foot away from her, a silver light suddenly flashed past her eyes, and then she heard the sound of something heavy falling to the ground. Meng Caidi slowly lowered her head and saw that the giant python's head was lying motionless at her feet, but the head was separated from the body, and blood was still spraying from the fracture. Meng Caidi's eyes, she stared blankly at everything in front of her, with tears still flowing in her eyes. After a long time, she finally recovered. She slowly turned around and looked forward, only to see a man about 10 feet away from her. There was a young man standing there, and the young man was looking at her with a smile. The young man was very handsome, and he was holding a long sword in his hand. The sword was still dripping with blood. This picture appeared to her. His eyes seemed to be frozen, and he couldn't get rid of them no matter what. Just then, she heard a voice. "Girl, are you okay?" "Ah no, it's okay, I'm okay, thank you really for saving me. Mengtside immediately replied as if she had just woken up from a dream. It's okay. You should go back as soon as possible. It's too dangerous here. You'd better go to the outside to collect medicine. After the young man finished speaking, he was about to leave. Wait a minute, please, what's your name? Mengtside asked immediately when she saw that the young man was about to leave. Wu Fan. The young man finished speaking and turned around to leave before Mengtside could speak. Mengtside stared blankly at the young man slowly disappearing back, without moving for a long time. After a while, Xiaoru couldn't help but said, Miss, don't look at it. He has left. Let's leave quickly. It's too dangerous here. Okay, let's go right away. As she said that, she turned around and walked back. After walking for a while, she looked back at the direction where the young man disappeared, and whispered the word Wu Fan softly. Chapter 13 Cave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 3 hours later, Wu Fan found a few more herbs. He looked up at the sky, which was covered with dark clouds. It looks like it's going to rain soon. I have to go back. Wu Fan whispered to himself. Just then, a thunderclap resounded through the sky, followed by a heavy rain. The rain hit Wu Fan's face, making it difficult for him to open his eyes. Wu Fan squinted his eyes, found a direction and walked quickly towards it. The rain was getting heavier and the visibility was very low. After Wu Fan walked for 2 hours, he found that he seemed to be lost. The sky was full of dark clouds, and he couldn't see where the sun was. He couldn't tell the direction. He tried to shout a few times, hoping that someone could hear his voice, but no one answered him. There was no way. Wu Fan could only try to choose a direction and continue walking. After walking for another 2 hours, he found a large canyon in front of him, and there was a cliff under his feet. Wu Fan knew that he had taken the wrong road, because there was no such canyon when he came here. Just when he was about to turn around and walk back, he saw a herb growing in the crack of a stone under the cliff. He took a closer look and found that it was a qinglong grass. Judging from the number of leaves, this herb should be 50 or 60 years old. This made Wu Fan very excited. He had been in the mountains for 11 days, and he had never seen such a long-year-old herb, and it was such a precious herb as qinglong grass. This qinglong grass alone could make up for the silver he earned from all the herbs he collected in 5 days. Although he was happy, Wu Fan could not pick it now because this herb grew on the cliff below the cliff. After thinking about it, Wu Fan immediately decided to wait until the rain stopped. 2 hours later, the rain finally subsided, but it was foggy again. The fog was so thick that Wu Fan could only see 5 meters away. It can be imagined that the fog was really thick. Wu Fan was very angry and decided not to wait any longer. He wanted to pick the herbs quickly and find a way back, otherwise it would be dark. He took out a rope from the bamboo basket, tied one end to the big tree next to the cliff, and threw the other end under the cliff. Then Wu Fan slowly climbed down with the rope. After climbing down for about 10 feet, he finally came to the side of the herb. Wu Fan reached out and happily pulled the herb off, and put it in the bamboo basket behind him. Just as he was about to climb up, he suddenly heard a bird chirping, and then saw a large black shadow running towards him. The fog was too thick, and he couldn't see clearly what it was. When the black shadow slowly approached, Wu Fan saw that it was a large eagle with gray feathers. The eagle was very large, about 10 feet in size. Wu Fan knew that he was in trouble. He had to hold the rope with one hand, and there was no way to deal with the eagle. There was no time for Wu Fan to think of a solution, because the eagle was almost in front of him. He pulled out the long sword from his waist with his left hand and swept it at the eagle. A cut was made on the eagle's wing, and blood dripped down the wing. The eagle felt pain and turned around and flew away. Wu Fan exhaled and whispered, "It finally flew away. I didn't expect it to be so easy to drive it away. It should be safe this time. I'd better climb up quickly." He put the long sword back into the scabbard at his waist and was about to climb up when he heard the whistling sound of the wind again. The eagle flew back again, but this time the eagle was not flying towards him, but flew directly to Wu Fan's head. With a bang, Wu Fan felt the rope loosen a little and fell down a little. Wu Fan knew that the eagle was picking at his rope. He didn't have time to think about it. He grabbed the rope and climbed up, but it was too late. With another bang, the rope broke and he fell down along the cliff. On the way down, Wu Fan tried to reach out and grab the protruding rock several times, but unfortunately he failed. His hands were cut and blood kept oozing out from the wounds. He looked down and saw that it was all foggy. He couldn't see how deep it was, nor could he see anything he could grab. Wu Fan's heart sank at this time. Was he going to be killed here today? It was too worthless to lose his life just to pick a herb, right? If he was bitten to death by a beast, it would be understandable. It proved that he was not good at martial arts and had to go deep into the depths arrogantly. But he was tricked by a big eagle and ended up being killed by the fall. Wu Fan fell down a distance again, and then there was a bang, and he fell heavily on a huge rock. Wu Fan felt sore all over, and his bones seemed to be falling apart. He couldn't get up for a while. After a while, he tried to get up slowly and moved his body. Although it was still painful, his bones were not broken. This was really fortunate. He looked up and looked around. It turned out that he didn't fall to the bottom of the cliff, but just fell on a huge rock protruding from the cliff. Wu Fan stretched his head and looked down. He wanted to see how deep he was from the ground, but because of the heavy fog, he couldn't see clearly. He had no choice but to lie down again, because he was in so much pain from the fall that he had to rest. An hour later, Wu Fan felt that his body was not as painful as before. He slowly stood up and looked at the cliff behind him. He found a hole in the cliff. The hole was not big, just enough for one person to enter. He pulled out his long sword and slowly walked towards the hole. Wu Fan walked into the cave entrance and found that there was a different world here. It was actually a natural cave. He looked up and saw that it was covered with stalactites. The stalactites reflected a faint light, illuminating the cave. Wu Fan walked slowly into the cave. The cave was very large. He couldn't tell how big it was. After walking for a while, Wu Fan stopped. His eyes opened wider and wider, and his mouth opened wide. The expression on his face was even a little exaggerated. After a while, the stunned look on his face turned into ecstasy. He was so excited that he even wanted to shout. Wu Fan looked straight ahead. He even thought he was dreaming because he saw that the ground in front of him was full of rare herbs, and they were all old herbs. Some of them were even hundreds of years old. Wu Fan cheered and ran over, looking at the herbs all over the ground. There were even some herbs he didn't recognize. He had read books about herbs for so many years, but he couldn't recognize them. This proved how rare and precious these herbs were. Chapter 14 Mysterious Beads. You are listening at MaleProtagonist. Looking at the large area of herbs in front of him, he didn't know what to do, because there were too many of them. Judging from the area, it was about 3 or 4 acres. What should I do? How can I take so many herbs back? The bamboo basket can't hold them. Even if I were given 100 bamboo baskets, they wouldn't hold them. Wu Fan whispered softly. Wu Fan's face slowly turned livid. This feeling of guarding a treasure mountain but not being able to take it away was simply too deadly. Wu Fan knew that he couldn't take these herbs away, so he simply didn't force it. He thought for a while and immediately decided to find a way back first. When he got back to the cliff, he would remember the location and mark it along the way. He would bring more people to pick the herbs and take them back later. Since he had a plan in mind, Wu Fan began to look for a way out in the cave. When Wu Fan came to the side of several small trees, he saw some fruits on these small trees, but the fruits on each small tree were different, and the colors were also different. He couldn't recognize what kind of fruits these were, but he looked at the fruits and they seemed to be particularly spiritual, and they were all emitting a faint glow. But Wu Fan didn't dare to pick them and eat them, because he knew that if he ate the wild fruits he didn't recognize, it would be fatal if he was unlucky. Wu Fan continued to walk forward, but when he came to a pool of water, he stopped. The pool was not very big, only about 2 feet in size. He lay on the ground, put his head close to the water, and then began to drink water. After drinking, he began to clean the wounds on his body. When he fell from the cliff, he had many wounds on his body and arms caused by stones. The deepest wound was on his right palm. When he fell off the cliff, he tried to grab the stone several times to be rescued, but failed. In the end, he scratched his palm and bled, and it is still bleeding now. After Wu Fan finished washing his body, just as he was about to get up, he found something in the pool that was emitting a faint light. Out of curiosity, Wu Fan went into the pool to see what was glowing. When he got closer, he saw clearly that there was an emerald green bead at the bottom of the pool. The bead was the size of a thumb and was emitting a faint light. Wu Fan reached out and grabbed the bead, then returned to the ground. Wu Fan spread his palm and looked at the bead carefully. He found that there was nothing special about the bead except that it glowed. In fact, Wu Fan didn't know that since he took the bead in his hand, the bead had begun to slowly absorb the blood on his hand. Wu Fan played with the bead for a while and was ready to continue looking for a way back. At this moment, an accident happened. The bead suddenly shone brightly. Wu Fan was surprised to find that the bead actually drilled into the wound on his palm. Then Wu Fan felt severe pain all over his body, as if tens of thousands of ants were gnawing at his internal organs. Wu Fan rolled over and over on the ground in pain, and at the same time, he let out a heart-wrenching scream. I don't know how long it took, it seemed like an hour, and it seemed like a day, before the pain gradually disappeared. Wu Fan sat up with difficulty, recalling what had just happened. The pain was so painful that he never wanted to experience such pain again. Wu Fan spread his palm and looked at the place where the bead had drilled into the palm just now. As a result, he found that the wound on the palm was gone, and there was no scar left. He looked at the other wounds on his body, and they also disappeared magically. However, he was now sticky all over, and there was a layer of black stuff on his skin, which seemed to be seeping out of the skin. It felt very uncomfortable, and it was disgusting to look at it, and there was also a fishy smell. Wu Fan turned around and went back to the pool to wash his body. After a long while, he finally washed his body clean. He looked at his crystal clear skin with a strange expression on his face, thinking, isn't this skin too good? Even a girl's skin is not so good. What is going on? What is that bead? Where did it go? Why did the wound disappear miraculously? Wu Fan said to himself. Wu Fan couldn't figure out what was going on, so he simply stopped thinking about it and continued to look for a way out. Wu Fan walked to the bamboo basket and put it on his back. He looked up and saw that his eyes could see farther and his ears became more sensitive. He immediately sat cross-legged on the ground to check his cultivation. He found that the bottleneck that he had not been able to break through had actually been broken through. Now he had cultivated the fire-burning art to the 3rd level. Wu Fan smiled and laughed very happily. He felt that all these experiences were worth it. He also knew what the black and sticky thing was. This was because the fire-burning art had the effect of cleansing the meridians and marrow after breaking through to the 3rd level, and all the dirt in his body was discharged. Wu Fan closed his eyes and found that he could see inside after being promoted to the 3rd level. He could clearly see the meridians in his body, and he could also see that the internal force flowing in the meridians was converging to the dantian little by little. Wu Fan checked every part of his body. He wanted to find the strange bead, but after searching all parts of his body, he still couldn't find the bead. He didn't believe it and wanted to see if there was anything in his mind. When Wu Fan looked into his mind, he suddenly found that he had come to a white space, and he had turned into a white ball of light. He had no body, no hands or feet, just a white ball of light. Wu Fan was stunned. Where is this? How did I turn into a ball of light? Is this my mind? Wu Fan said to himself, but unfortunately no one would tell him. Wu Fan felt that everything he encountered today was too weird. Since he couldn't figure out what was going on, he stopped thinking about it. He controlled the light ball to fly forward. Not far away, he finally found the emerald green bead. Wu Fan immediately flew towards the bead. When he got close, he saw that the bead was motionless. Wu Fan flew around the bead and then slowly approached the bead. At the moment he touched the bead, an accident happened again. The emerald green bead suddenly shone brightly. Wu Fan found that his small light ball could not move. He wanted to get away from the bead quickly, but he couldn't fly at all, as if he was cast into a fixed body spell. At the same time, when the light ball touched the emerald green bead, Wu Fan was still sitting cross-legged in the cave outside. At this moment, a white light suddenly emerged from Wu Fan's body. At first, the white light was very faint, but as time passed, the light became brighter and brighter. After about a quarter of an hour, Wu Fan could no longer be seen in the dazzling light. At this moment, the white light suddenly disappeared, and Wu Fan also disappeared with it. However, the emerald green bead was left in the original place, and then the bead slowly became transparent, and finally disappeared little by little, as if the bead had hidden itself. Chapter 15 Mysterious Space. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wu Fan slowly opened his eyes, and he found that he was in a courtyard. He was stunned at that time. Am I not in a cave? How did I get here, and where is this? Am I dreaming? Wu Fan said to himself. Wu Fan stood up and looked around. There was a huge stone tablet on one side of the yard. The stone tablet was about 3 feet high and 1 foot wide, but it was blank with no words on it. On the other side of the yard, there was a small well. It's not big, only 3 feet in size and 5 feet deep. There was also a thatched house in the yard. Wu Fan walked to the house, opened the door and walked in. What he saw when he entered the house was a hall. The hall was very large, about 10 feet in size, and about 3 feet high above his head. The house is very empty, there is nothing, the ground, walls and roof are gray and white, very smooth. I don't know what kind of ore it is made of. What Wu Fan found strange was that there were no windows or lights in this room, but it was bright. What feels even more strange is that when he was in the yard just now, he clearly saw that the thatched house was very small, but why was the hall so big? Wu Fan simply couldn't understand what was going on. There were 2 doors on both sides and in front of the hall. There should be 6 rooms. Wu Fan chose the one on the left and walked in. He guessed correctly. It was indeed a room, and it was also empty. None. Just like that, he looked at the 4 rooms on both sides. They were all the same rooms. There was nothing. There were only the last 2 rooms left. Wu Fan chose one and walked in. As soon as he entered the room, he was stunned. What kind of house was this? Is this a huge space at all? It could be more than 10 miles in diameter, and it was so high that the top could not be seen at a glance. Wu Fan was shocked. It was too big. Wu Fan retreated and entered the last room. This room was finally different from the others. It finally contained items. The space was still very large, more than 10 feet long and wide. The whole room was made of rows of purple-brown wood. The cabinet, just like the cabinet in Wu Fan's medicine shop, had many small drawers. Wu Fan walked over and pulled out a drawer. It was empty, with nothing in it. Just like that, Wu Fan pulled it out one by one to check, and the results were all there was nothing. Wu Fan was a little depressed, and thought to forget it, and then wanted to go out, but at this moment, Wu Fan found that there was a cabinet in the innermost corner, but this cabinet was very small. There were fewer drawers than other cabinets. Wu Fan walked over. He wanted to pull out the drawer to check, but he didn't pull it out. He tried another drawer and pulled it out, but it also couldn't be pulled out. Then he pulled out each drawer. Repeatedly, the result was the same. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't pull it out. There was no other way. Wu Fan shook his head and walked out. Returning to the yard, he walked out and looked out. This was a small space, about 5 acres of black land. The edges of the land were all gray and he couldn't see what was outside. Wu Fan stepped on the ground and walked to the edge. He touched the gray barrier with his hand. It felt like a wall, very hard. He took out his long sword and slashed towards the barrier. He only heard a clang, and the barrier was a little stronger. There was no scratch, so Wu Fan tried several more times with the same effect. Just like that, Wu Fan started to circle around the entire small space, and from time to time he used his long sword to chop at the gray barrier. The result was still the same, he couldn't break it open at all, there was no other way. Wu Fan walked back to the yard and sat by the well. He began to think about how to get out of this space. After thinking for a long time, he couldn't figure out a way. Wu Fan felt despair and thought to himself, am I going to be trapped and die in this space? Why are everything I encounter today so strange? That Wu Fan took out the dry food in the bamboo basket and ate some. After eating, he lay down by the well and drank some water. Not long after drinking the water, he found that his body was getting hot, and then he saw that the disease appeared on him again. There was a layer of black dirt, but this time there was very little. After a while, he moved his body and found that he felt relaxed and indescribably comfortable. Wu Fan stared at the well. He guessed that there was something strange about the water in the well. The water should have the effect of cleaning up impurities in the body. It was the same as the impurities discharged when he broke through the third level, but there should not be too much in his body now. There were many impurities, so not much was discharged this time. Wu Fan smiled, he knew that this well must be a treasure. Wu Fan was bored in this space and had nothing to do. He glanced at the bamboo basket. There was not much dry food left in the bamboo basket. He knew that he would starve to death if he could not hold on for a few days. Fortunately, Wu Fan had nothing to do, so he took the herbs picked from the bamboo basket and planted them on the land outside. He also took some water from the well and poured it on the land. After the busy work is over, there is nothing to do. Lying in the yard, Wu Fan thought about some of the past years, thinking about his elderly parents, thinking about his lovely sister, thinking about the way his elder brother looked at him when he smiled, and thinking about what his master had taught him over the years. Still thinking about Saint Fei laughing and playing with him every day, thinking about it, Wu Fan actually fell asleep. When he opened his eyes again, the yard was still the same yard, the land was still the same land, and the surrounding space was still gray. Wu Fan knew that he was not dreaming, he was really trapped in this space. No, how could this be? Wu Fan looked at the herbs he planted yesterday. These herbs were obviously going to die when they were planted yesterday, so he watered them to see if they could survive. Now it looked like these herbs were growing very well, full of vitality, and still alive. Grew up a bit, Wu Fan recognized a herb called thousand-layer grass. Every year this herb grows, a circle of golden lines will appear on its stem. When it was planted yesterday, there were only 5 golden lines, which means the herb was only 5 years old. Why did it grow 6 golden lines in just one day? Wu Fan couldn't figure out what was going on. It was impossible for him to sleep for a year. He suspected that there was something strange about the land, or the well water. It should be that the land or the water had the effect of ripening the herbs. Thinking of this, Wu Fan was a little excited. If he could return to the cave and enter this small space again, he would transplant all the herbs in the cave to this land. When he returned to Xianxia city, he would be rich. He could also collect some herb seeds and plant them here. In the future, there would be a steady supply of herbs to sell. Moreover, this place also had the effect of ripening herbs. Doesn't that mean that he wouldn't have to wait too long to get the aged herbs in the future? Thinking of this, Wu Fan's mouth corners rose and he smiled. No, I can't be trapped here. I have to find a way out, Wu Fan thought to himself. He began to look for a way out in this small space again, and even went back to the thatched house to check it again, but he still couldn't find it. Wu Fan sat on the ground like a deflated man, carefully recalling how he got in. How should I get out? After a while, Wu Fan's eyes suddenly lit up and he thought of a way. He remembered that when he looked inside his mind yesterday, he turned into a small ball of light. When he touched the green bead, he was fixed and came here. He decided to try again. Wu Fan immediately sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. When he turned into a small ball of light again, he found that he was wrapped in a layer of green light, but he could move. Then Wu Fan flew up and rushed out of the green light. He returned to the white mist again. Space, looked down, the emerald green bead was still there motionless, just as Wu Fan rushed out of the green light. At the same time, in the cave outside, at the place where Wu Fan disappeared before, a white light suddenly lit up, and Wu Fan's figure could still be seen faintly in the white light, and then the white light suddenly disappeared, leaving only Wu Fan sitting cross-legged. Wu Fan slowly opened his eyes, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and then the smile gradually grew. "Ha, I'm back again," Wu Fan shouted with a big laugh. Chapter 16 Return. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wu Fan stood up and looked at the scenery in the cave, and then looked at the pieces of herbs, with a look of ecstasy on his face. Finally out, I should be able to enter that space again. If my analysis is correct, the emerald green bead should be an extraordinary treasure, and the space should be inside the bead. I will go pick some herbs later, and then I will know after entering once. Wu Fan whispered to himself. As soon as he said it, Wu Fan started to get busy. He took out a shovel from the bamboo basket, walked to the herbs and started picking them. After a while, the bamboo basket was full, and then he walked far away from the place where he entered the space just now. Wu Fan wanted to experiment whether this space would move with him, and then he closed his eyes and entered his mind again. When he turned into a small ball of light again, the ball of light flew to the emerald green bead and hit it. As a result, the previous scene appeared again, and he was fixed again, unable to move and could only watch, and saw that the emerald green bead emitted a bright light again. At the same time, Wu Fan in the cave outside began to emit light again, and the light became brighter and brighter. After a quarter of an hour, the light suddenly disappeared, and Wu Fan also disappeared. The green beads left on the spot also slowly disappeared. Wu Fan opened his eyes and looked around, and immediately laughed wildly. He really returned to this small space. In this way, Wu Fan began his picking and planting work. He entered the space for a while and returned to the cave for a while. He was busy and happy. 5 days later, Wu Fan had almost eaten the dry food in the bamboo basket, but only half of the herbs were transplanted. Wu Fan had no choice but to walk to the small trees, picked a green fruit and took a bite. After a while, he found that he had nothing to do. In this way, Wu Fan slept in a thatched house in the space when he was sleepy, drank some well water when he was thirsty, and ate a few fruits when he was hungry. However, he discovered 2 things. The first thing was that it took him about a quarter of an hour to enter the space every time, but when he came out, he could come out almost instantly. The second thing is that it is the well water that can make the herbs grow quickly overnight. The water has the function of ripening herbs. As long as the water is poured on the herbs, after 1 day, the herbs will be ripened for a year, but the well water is too little. He used up more than half of the well water in the past 2 days, and then he dared not use it casually again, because he carefully observed that he found that the well water would indeed increase slowly over time, but the recovery of the well water was too slow, and it was almost invisible with the eyes. There are many small holes under the well, and the water slowly emerges from these small holes. According to Wu Fan's calculations, if he wants to ripen the herbs continuously in the future, based on the slow water output of the well water, he can only ripen about 10 herbs every day. It seems that he can only choose a few precious herbs to ripen in the future. 8 days later, Wu Fan transplanted all the herbs, leaving only the 5 fruit trees. After thinking about it, Wu Fan used a shovel to dig out all the soil at the bottom of the tree roots, then grabbed the small tree and entered the space. He planted the fruit tree in the land near the yard. After all the transplants were completed, Wu Fan began to think about how to go back. It has been almost 10 days since Wu Fan entered the cave. The herb collecting team should have returned to Xianxia City 5 or 6 days ago. I don't know if Xiaofei and Uncle Hu are still looking for me. They must think that I have encountered an accident. I don't know if Xiaofei will cry for me. Wu Fan smiled and muttered softly. Wu Fan walked out of the cave and returned to the boulder where he fell before. Now there was no fog, and he could see the surrounding environment. He saw that there was still the big canyon in front of him. Looking down, there was about 50 feet to reach the bottom of the valley. Although he had light skills, if he didn't have a place to leverage, he would definitely be killed if he jumped directly. He looked at the cliffs on the left and right, and found that there was a tree growing 10 feet below the right cliff, and there were vines about 20 feet long under the tree. Wu Fan calculated the distance and felt that he should be able to get down to the bottom of the valley. Since he broke through to the third level of the fire burning technique, his strength has become stronger. According to Wu Fan's speculation, he should be able to fight with the top masters now, but it is not certain whether he can beat the top masters. Wu Fan used his internal force, performed the flying swallow step, jumped up to the small tree, and then slid down directly along the vines on the small tree. When he was still 20 feet away from the ground, there were no vines to grab. Wu Fan jumped down regardless. During the fall, his feet borrowed strength from the cliff once, and finally jumped to the ground. Wu Fan stood up, patted the dust on his body, and left after finding the direction. Uncle Hu, will Brother Xiaofan have an accident? He has been missing for 4 days. The herb-picking team will go back tomorrow. We have almost searched everywhere outside the mountain range, but we can't find Brother Xiaofan. Song Fei asked Hu Dague with red eyes. Alas, who knows? Xiaofan is good at martial arts, so he should be fine. Don't worry about him, Xiaofei. Let's take a break and continue looking. Hu Dague replied in a self-deceiving way. At this time, Su Kun, Chen Peng and others came over. Su Kun said, Boss Hu, we have searched all the valleys over there, but we still can't find Xiaofan. Chen Peng roared with red eyes, we have to keep looking even if we can't find him. Whether it takes a month or a year, Chen Peng must find him alive or dead. A short middle-aged man stood beside Chen Peng, and he said, Brother Chen, don't get excited. I know you care about Xiaofan very much. Xiaofan saved you a few days ago, but we have also watched Xiaofan grow up. We are all very worried, but we have searched all the places we should look for. If we want to look for it, we can only go deeper, but it's too dangerous. The short middle-aged man stopped talking here. I don't care about that. We must go in and look for it even in the depths of the mountains. If you want to go, go. I will go and look for it myself. At most, I will die. Chen Peng shouted. Okay, stop arguing. Brother Fan is right just now. It's too dangerous in the depths. Let's think of other ways. We can't just go in and die blindly. Boss Hu looked at the two and said loudly. At this time, Su Kun said again, Gao Qingbin and his escort agency are also helping to look for it, but I don't think they are looking very hard. On the contrary, the people of Baiyashai are very dedicated, especially the little girl named Kaidai. I saw that she cried several times in a hurry. It is said that Xiaofan saved her. Ah, that's enough, let's go and continue looking. If we can't find him, how can we explain to Mr. Lu when we go back? Boss Hu said with a sigh. At this time, several people from the distance came over here, all of them were from Huachuntang, and one of them shouted found it. Xiaofan was found. When everyone heard the shout, they all looked over and saw 5 people coming from a distance, one of whom was about 16 or 17 years old, with fair skin and handsome looks. This person was Wu Fan. Chapter 17 Harvest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 18 Harvest. Time goes back to the past. After Wu Fan walked out of the cave, he walked for a long time at the bottom of the canyon before finding the way up. Then he walked back without stopping. Without the influence of heavy rain and fog, Wu Fan was still able to find the general direction. In this way, 3 hours later, he returned to the outer area. Wu Fan was walking back quickly when he suddenly heard someone calling his name in the distance. The voice sounded familiar. He knew that it should be someone from Huachuntang looking for him. Wu Fan immediately ran in the direction of the voice and shouted, I'm here, I'm here. After a while, 4 figures appeared in the distance. When they saw Wu Fan, they laughed and shouted, it's really Xiaofan. Xiaofan is fine, that's great. That when he got closer, Wu Fan said embarrassedly, Uncle Li, Uncle Wang, how did you get here? After that, Wu Fan blushed and lowered his head. He knew that what he said was a bit of a knowing question, but he really didn't know what to say. Stinky boy, isn't it to find you? You've been missing for 4 days. Do you know how worried everyone is about you? You also know that the herb-picking team will return to the city tomorrow, so you are willing to come back. A bearded man scolded. Wu Fan was stunned when he heard this. How could he disappear for 4 days? I've been away for almost 10 days. What's going on? Wu Fan thought quickly in his mind and thought of a possibility, that is, the flow rate of time in the mysterious space is different from that in the outside world. He quickly calculated in his mind the time he spent picking herbs in the cave, the time he spent planting herbs in the space, and the time he spent sleeping in a thatched house in the space. In the end, he came up with a rough result, that is, 10 days in the mysterious space. In fact, only 1 day has passed in the outside world. Thinking of this, Wu Fan was a little stunned. Isn't this too magical? Does that mean that I can plant herb seeds in the space, and after a year in the outside world, I can go into the space to collect 10-year-old herbs? With the well water, wouldn't it be easy for me to get high-year-old herbs in the future? Thinking of this, Wu Fan was very excited. Only then did another big man say, "Oldly, don't scold Xiao Fan anymore, he is back, you see, he is so quiet after being scolded by you." Only then did Wu Fan come back from thinking, and hurriedly said, "Uncle Li, I'm sorry, I made everyone worried." At this time, the big man named Uncle Li looked better, and then said, "Okay, hurry back, everyone is looking for you, you can't run around casually in the future." After that, he turned around and left. In this way, Wu Fan and the other 5 walked back, and the previous scene happened. Boss Hu, Song Fei, Su Kuan, Chen Peng and more than a dozen people went to meet the 5 people together. "Brother Xiaofan, where have you been? Do you know that I've been worried to death these days?" Song Fei ran over and threw himself on Wu Fan and said. "That's right, where have you been? What happened to you?" "Yes, Xiaofan, where did you go and why did you come back so late?" "Xiaofan, this is your fault. Everyone is worried about you." Wu Fan looked at everyone talking at once, and felt a little moved in his heart, but a bitter smile appeared on his face. "Okay, all of you shut up and let Xiaofan speak for himself." At this time, Boss Hu spoke. Wu Fan finally had a chance to speak, and then he looked at everyone and said, "It was raining heavily that day, and I got lost. Later, I fell into a canyon and didn't return until today." At this time, Chen Peng came over, took Wu Fan's arm and said, "It's good that you're back. Fortunately, there was no accident. I feel relieved when you come back. Okay, since Xiaofan is back, let's go down the mountain. We will go back to the city tomorrow." Boss Hu said and turned away. Everyone followed him down the mountain. That night, in the caravan at the foot of the mountain, Wu Fan lay on the carriage, thinking about the experiences of the past few days, just like a dream. Although he suffered some hardships, it was all worth it. Not only did he get a magical space, he also harvested so many rare herbs, and finally broke through to the 3rd level of the fire-burning technique. Thinking of this, Wu Fan smiled. Since Wu Fan returned to the caravan, the people from Huichun Hall came to him one by one to ask him questions. After Wu Fan sent them away, Gao Qingbin came again, asked about the situation and left. The girl named Meng Kaidai also came, her face flushed, and ran away after asking about the situation. The next morning, the caravan slowly drove towards Qingshan City. This time, a total of 7 people died in the mountains. Fortunately, there were no casualties in Huichun Hall. In the evening, the convoy entered Qingshan City. After everyone handed in the herbs they had picked, they returned to their residences. They had a month of rest. Wu Fan also pretended to take out some ordinary herbs in exchange for 15 taels of silver. After being questioned by his master, he returned to his room, lay on the bed, looked at the roof, and thought to himself, "I have a month of rest. During this period, in addition to practicing, I also have to sell some herbs in the space. I need silver to buy a house in the city, and then go back to Wujia village to pick up my parents and sister. I haven't seen my parents for many years. I don't know how they are doing." During this month, Wu Fan went out to sell herbs several times, and sold them to many medicine shops. In order to avoid suspicion, he had to do this. He sold some ordinary herbs in the space and exchanged them for 500 taels of silver, which could buy a nice mansion in the city. Then Wu Fan found his eldest brother, told him his idea, and gave 500 taels of silver to Wu Hao, asking him to help buy a mansion. Wu Hao looked at the silver in front of him and was a little stunned. In the end, he took it and promised his brother that he would do it well. Wu Fan was busy practicing every day, but now he practiced in the space, because the time flow rate in the space was 10 times that of the outside world, so practicing in the space would save more time. A month later, Wu Fan followed the herb collecting team into the mountains again. Although he was very rich now, the task of the medicine shop must be completed. There were many beasts in the mountains, and Wu Fan could also hone himself through fighting. Time passed quickly. In addition to collecting herbs in the mountains, Wu Fan practiced in the space. Just like that, a year passed. This morning, brother Xiaofan, that colorful butterfly girl is looking for you again. Song Fei ran over and shouted to Wu Fan's room. Wu Fan walked out of the room, looked at Song Fei and said, "Xiaofei, help me tell the colorful butterfly girl that I have something to do and can't go out." "Alas, I really don't understand you. The colorful butterfly girl is so beautiful, why do you always keep people away from her?" Song Fei sighed and said, "Do you believe I will beat you?" Wu Fan glared at Song Fei and said, "Okay, I'll go, don't be angry," Song Fei said and ran away immediately. Chapter 19 Medicine Gang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2 months later, 500 miles away from Qingshan City, there is a big city called Fanyang City. This Fanyang City is bigger and more prosperous than Qingshan City. 20 miles outside the city, there is a huge manor. From a distance, the manor is huge and majestic. Rows of pavilions and towers stand in the manor. In a magnificent hall, a white-haired old man is sitting on the main seat. The old man has a square face, a wide mouth, white beard and white eyebrows. When he sits there, he exudes a huge momentum of a person who has been in a high position for a long time. There is a middle-aged Confucian scholar standing below him. At this time, the Confucian scholar is bowing to report something to the old man. "Boss, the Tianlang gang will attack soon. We need to prepare early." This time, the Tianlang gang has colluded with more than a dozen small and medium-sized gangs. It can be seen that they want to take down our medicine gang in one fell swoop. The middle-aged Confucian scholar bowed and said, "This is outrageous. It's simply too much. The Tianlang gang robbed our territory. I didn't go to settle accounts with them, but they wanted to destroy us. Do they really think that I, Yang Wentian, am made of mud?" The white-haired old man shouted with his eyes fixed. "Boss, the Tianlang gang wouldn't do this just because of the small territory on the border. This time they sent troops here with great fanfare. I think the Tianlang gang has a big plan." The middle-aged Confucian scholar continued. "Mr. Shen is right. You are the think tank of my medicine gang. What do you think the Tianlang gang is planning this time?" The old man looked at the Confucian scholar thoughtfully and asked. "I don't know about this. I have sent people to inquire about it. So far, no suspicious points have been found. I only know that the leader of the Tianlang gang, Lang Dabiao, has been very close to the leader of the Huiyan gang, Fan Qingdong, in the past 2 years." The middle-aged Confucian scholar thought for a while and replied. "What did you say? Lang Dabiao and Fan Qingdong are very close. This is troublesome. If the Tianlang gang only teamed up with those small and medium-sized gangs, I really wouldn't be afraid of him, but the Huiyan gang is also a first-class gang, and Fan Qingdong and Lang Dabiao are both top masters. What can we do?" The old man said with a bitter face. "For now, we can only take it one step at a time. I think it's too late to ask for help from other gangs at this time. Besides, other gangs will not wade into this muddy water at this time." The middle-aged scholar frowned and said. "It's come to this point, and it can only be done this way. Mr. Shen, you go and tell the nearby cities that all the affiliated forces of the medicine gang, all the masters above the third rate, come quickly to resist the enemy. The old man suddenly stood up and gave orders. Yes, I will do it right away. After the scholar said this, he bowed and retreated. 7 days later, Qingshan City, Huachuntang Pharmacy, Wu Fan was practicing, and heard Song Fei's voice outside. Brother Xiaofan, come out quickly, master asked us to go over. I know, I'll come out right away. Wu Fan had no choice but to end his practice. He was very curious about what happened. Now was not the day to go into the mountains, and master would not summon him normally. In the hall, old Lu sat on the main seat, and Wu Fan and Song Fei stood beside him. This time I called you here for a big event. You should go back to your residence and pack up. We are going to go on a long journey to Fanyang City. I will tell you what it is on the way. Let's go back now. After packing up, meet at the gate. Old Lu said hurriedly and turned away. Wu Fan and Song Fei looked at each other, with doubts in their eyes, and couldn't help but mutter in their hearts, what made master so anxious, and then hurriedly replied, yes, and walked out immediately. An hour later, more than 50 people had gathered at the gate, including Boss Hu, Su Kun, Chen Peng and others. Boss Lu shouted, let's go. More than 50 people got on their horses in an orderly manner, and then rushed out of the city in a mighty manner. 3 days later, outside Fanyang City, at the headquarters of the medicine gang, more than 30 people were standing in the hall at this time. The gang leader Yang Wentian sat in the main seat. He looked at the quarreling gang members below, frowned and shouted, okay, stop quarreling. Everyone stopped quarreling immediately, and then looked at the gang leader in unison, and the hall became quiet instantly. Mr. Shen, please talk first. Yang Wentian turned his head and looked at the middle-aged Confucian scholar and asked. To the gang leader, our medicine gang is currently surrounded by the Tianlang gang and more than a dozen gangs. The other side has about 1,200 people. Our medicine gang currently has only 700 people gathered here. Now the situation is serious. Please make the decision, gang leader. Mr. Shen said with a fist. Are there any people from the Fire Cloud gang? Yang Wentian asked, looking at Mr. Shen. No one from the Fire Cloud gang has been found yet. Mr. Shen continued to reply. When Yang Wentian heard this, his heart relaxed and his face was no longer as ugly as before. As long as the Fire Cloud gang can't come, with our current manpower, geographical environment, and traps, we should be able to fight for a while. Now we can only delay time and wait for the arrival of reinforcements. Yang Wentian sighed and said. That's the only way. Mr. Shen said and stood there with his eyes closed. Yang Wentian glanced at the more than 30 people below and said, you lead your men to stand by. When the enemy attacks, I will deal with the leader of the Tianlang gang myself. You just need to defend your position and don't let the enemy break through the defense line and attack. The more than 30 people below clasped their hands and said yes at the same time. An hour later, at the foot of the mountain outside the medicine gang headquarters, there were densely packed figures in front of them, wearing various clothes, holding swords, all staring at the direction of the villa, and near the villa, there were also hundreds of people standing, these people also holding weapons, staring at the crowd in the distance below. At this time, the crowd dispersed and several figures walked out. One of them was Yang Wentian himself. He looked at the crowd below and suddenly shouted, Lang Dabiao, what do you mean by coming here today? Huh, old man Yang, you finally came out. I don't mean anything. I just took a fancy to your territory. I wonder if you can give it up. A laugh came from the opposite mountain. It was the leader of the Tianlang gang, Lang Dabiao himself. Which place on the border did you take a fancy to? We can sit down and talk about it. Why make such a big fuss? Yang Wentian asked with a frown. The crowd on the opposite side and below dispersed, and a middle-aged man with broad shoulders and a strong waist walked out. He had triangular eyes, a beard, and a 3-inch-long scar on his face. He held a big knife in his hand and looked up at Yang Wentian. Chapter 20 Fighting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The wolf de Biao's mouth moved, and he said with a sly smile, "Old Yang, are you really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Of course, I am interested in your entire territory. You are really dreaming. Aren't you afraid that the wind will blow your tongue away? Who gave you the courage to destroy my medicine gang with just the people you brought? My medicine gang has been passed down for hundreds of years and has existed until now. It is not something you, Wolf de Biao, can destroy just like that. Besides, aren't you afraid that we will both suffer losses and be picked up by others in the end? I advise you to withdraw with your people as soon as possible." Yang Wentian was so angry that his face turned blue, and he said angrily, "Ha, old Yang, you don't have to threaten me. I'm not a 3-year-old child. How can I be scared by you? If you are afraid of both suffering losses, then you can take all your people and withdraw from Qingzhou. Then I will withdraw my troops. What do you think of this, old Yang?" Wolf de Biao shouted with a big laugh. At this time, Lang de Biao was not moved at all, as if he had already defeated Yang Wentian, and no one knew what cards he had. "It's unreasonable, you are simply bullying me too much. All right, no more talk, let's fight." Yang Wentian was so angry that he turned around and left with his sleeves thrown. At this time, a man from the medicine gang walked out, who should be a small leader, and he shouted fiercely, "Archers, get ready." With a whoosh, 50 or 60 people walked out of the crowd, all holding bows and arrows, and the arrows were aimed at the crowd below. The wolf de Biao on the opposite side snorted coldly with an ugly face, and shouted at the same time, "If you don't accept the toast, you will be punished. Brothers, kill them for me." As soon as he finished speaking, the dense crowd shouted and rushed upwards. At the same time, the leader of the medicine gang also shouted with a murderous look on his face, "Shoot." The more than 50 archers immediately shot down arrows with their bowstrings, and the crowd below also suffered many casualties. For a while, the members of the Tianlang gang retreated again. When Lang Dabiao saw that his own side was suffering heavy casualties from arrows, his face turned ashen, and he immediately ordered the people around him, "You go, let the people of the Black Snake gang raise their shields and rush up first. If they dare not go, kill them without mercy." "Yes, I obey your order." The man turned and left. Not long after, more than 100 people appeared below, holding shields and rushing up. Although these more than 100 people also suffered heavy casualties, they were really rushed to the front. At this time, the more than 30 people in the front suddenly felt that the ground under their feet loosened, and then the ground began to collapse. Everyone fell into a large pit, and the pit was covered with steel nails more than a foot long. These people died quite miserably. At this time, the wolf continued to shout with a fierce look on his face, "Send me another 200 people." In this way, after the Tianlang gang lost nearly 300 people, they finally rushed to the top of the mountain. The two groups finally collided with each other. Suddenly, there were flashes of swords and shadows, shouts of killing, and fresh lives turned into corpses. At this time, more than 50 people came not far from the bottom of the mountain. These people looked at the battle above, not knowing what to do next, and then they all looked at an old man. These people were Wu Fan and others who had rushed to arrive after several days. Although they came non-stop, they were still late. It was impossible for them to meet up with the Yao gang now. If they rushed up now, they would definitely be surrounded by the enemy's rear row, so these people all looked at Lu Lao, waiting for him to give orders. "I know there is a forest on the back mountain of the villa. We can go around from the back and then find an opportunity to kill in," Lu Lao said after thinking for a while. Then Lu Lao took the lead and walked towards the back mountain, and the others followed closely. Half an hour later, at the back mountain of the villa, more than 20 people from the Tianlang gang were guarding here. Among them, a short middle-aged man with a pointed mouth and monkey cheeks said to the others, "I say you don't be so nervous, okay? The gang leader asked our team to guard here because he was afraid that someone would support the medicine gang. But think about it, the medicine gang is now trapped in a jar, and sooner or later we will kill them all. Who would dare to come to save them? It's better to be careful. Don't forget that some subordinate forces of the medicine gang haven't come yet," one of them replied. At this moment, a sword light fell from the sky. The thin middle-aged man's eyes widened. He felt like he was flying up, and then fell to the ground. He saw a person in front of him. He felt very familiar with this person, but he didn't remember him for a while. He looked up and saw that this person had no head, and the neck was still chi-chi spurting blood. Then the man fell in front of him. At this time, he remembered that this was my own body. He felt very sleepy and wanted to sleep. Finally, he was replaced by darkness. Lu Lao looked down at the head that he had chopped off with a sword, then kicked the head away with a foot, and then shouted, "Kill them for me." More than 50 people rushed out of the woods and surrounded the 20 or so people of the Tianlang gang in the middle. The 20 or so people were trembling with fear. One of them shouted, "It's death anyway, brothers, kill them." Then he rushed towards those people. A moment later, Wu Fan looked at the 20 or so corpses in front of him, his stomach churning, because this was his first time killing someone, and he had just killed 2 people. It would be a lie if he wasn't afraid. At this time, old Lu came over, patted Wu Fan on the shoulder and said, "Don't be afraid, it's like this for the first time, you'll get used to it in the future." "Well, the disciple is fine. Master, what should we do next? Should we rush over?" Wu Fan said after swallowing his saliva. "We will see the situation. We must fight our way out of a gap and try to move forward," replied old Lu. At the same time, the battle in front of the villa had entered a fierce stage. Both sides were already killing each other. From time to time, a figure fell in a pool of blood. At this moment, a man shouted, "Yang Wentian, do you dare to come and fight?" Yang Wentian looked forward and saw that the wolf was slashing people to the ground one by one, and he was walking towards him without stopping. Yang Wentian was furious and shouted loudly, "Why not?" He ran over and the 2 of them fought in an instant. The 2 were both top masters, and no one dared to get close to where they were fighting. The wolf de Biao used his inner strength and slashed at Yang Wentian with a knife. Yang Wentian held a long sword in his hand and raised the sword to block the long sword. There was a loud clang and the 2 separated in an instant. Then Yang Wentian used his inner strength, jumped up with his feet on the ground, and stabbed directly at the head of the wolf de Biao. The wolf de Biao rolled on the ground and dodged directly, then raised his knife and rushed towards Yang Wentian again. In this way, the 2 of them fought back and forth, and it was hard to tell who would win.